Hi friends. From the looks of it, yes, we're going into the new Anastasia Beverly Hills Nouveau eyeshadow palette released I forgot when. I was not going to buy this palette until I swatched it at Sephora, and yes, I was wooed, I was seduced by many of the shades here and compelled initially by the color story when I first saw it on the internet. Didn't want to do a review because again, I didn't get the chance to get on here in enough time to share my thoughts on it, if you need to buy it or not. I figured it was well received. I think generally the reviews are positive on this one, and I've been using it all weekend. And I wanted to on purpose to acquaint myself with the palette because I now want to go into the realm of, okay, we got this palette, so now what? You know how I love to educate and help inspire you to use makeup that we buy, and more importantly, so we could zero in on the colors here. Perhaps you can dupe a lot of the shades if you have other palettes that match this color story. Judging from the website and the advertisements, this takes on a very Art Deco type of a vintage feel in terms of the colors in here. People were fascinated by the fact that you had like one pastel and everything else was the turquoise, the antique clay type of a shade. I was also very much interested in the inclusion of wisteria. And if you are a Demon Slayer fan, a Kimetsu no Yaiba fan, you know the importance of wisteria. I'm sorry if the framing is different, it's because I just finished dinner and I cannot sit down after I just ate, so I'm standing. That's why, yeah, I can't. What was I saying about this palette? I think I left off speaking about the inspiration, what I pulled from the ABH website on the product page. It seemed very Art Deco in nature, very vintage, right? And I really like the colors in here, so I wanted to go through these swatches, and as I do, just place each shade's role, I feel, in helping you how to best navigate this palette. Wings, a metallic silver green with sparkling reflex. Sparkling. So here's our first metallic shade we have in the palette, and I would use this on the lid, inner corner, inner lower lash line. This will definitely add brightness to the lid and will pair nicely with Liberty, the olive tone matte in here, also with Flor, which is more like a rose tone matte. But let's go into Isle. Isle is the metallic blonde gold, definitely warmer in nature. I like to use this on the inner corner, inner lower lash line, great for the lid. Belle is a metallic antique bronze, classic all around, solo on the lid. Pair this with the more neutral mattes in here, and it just has a beautiful metallized finish on the eyes. Wisteria, the matte pastel lavender with sparkling reflex. You can't notice them as much in the swatch, but maybe you can if you place a hard light on it. Wisteria is one of the shades in here that is not recommended for eye use, but I've been using on the eyes fine. They just need to put it out there because of it's considered a pigment and not an actual eyeshadow because of eye safety. There are more specifics to that than what I just presented, but wanted to let you know. Lily was the shade that said when I swatched this eyeshadow palette for the first time. Metallic rose gold with multi-dimensional reflex. There is a lot of different colored pearl in this shade. It has a lovely rose base with the lavender, blue, even teal green reflex I feel in this shade. It really has nice silkiness to it and can be paired with a lot of the different mattes in here. So naturally you would pair Lily with Wisteria, but I would argue that you can pair it with the other more neutral tone metallics, not only the ones we just saw, but the ones that are to follow. Hope, a metallic olive green with gold reflex, a lovely texture as you saw from the previously swatched metallics, but Hope has beautiful like glisten and glitz as well. It's smooth. It doesn't have as much of the multicolor reflex as Lily does, but you could just see the base and again how beautifully shiny it is. Paloma, again a shade that's not eye safe in the eyeshadow palette. Matte creamy ivory with sparkling reflex, great for the inner corner, brow bone highlight, maybe to set up your color across the crease if you like to place a more beige color there before you start the eye look. Flor, first lay down shade, and you can see pairs well with Hope, Lily, the metallic bronze, what is it called? Belle, sorry. Even, dare I say, any of these shades. So it's a little light. It doesn't show up a lot on me, but if I pair it with Metro, you can kind of get some out of it. Liberty, the matte muted hunter green, great color. Great, I have to say, these mattes from Nouveau, they're really smooth and silky and pretty easy to blend. I was very happy to discover that. They're soft though, they're soft in the pan. So if you go overly tap aggressive in there, there'll be a little bit of a spoof in the pan. So just be careful, you know, when you tap. Peacock, duochrome, bluish green brown with pink reflex. Classic duochrome shade that we've seen many a time, but nice that it's in here. Definitely gives a little pizzazz to the palette. Metro, another not eye safe shade, is the my favorite matte rich clay. Definitely leans more on the red side, but you can see a little bit of that. Say it with me now, terracotta. Muse is my most favorite shade in the palette, and I'll tell you why. It is described to be a metallic chocolate brown, but what I love about it, it's a metallic, not a matte, and you can use it to steer your eye look to be more intense, to add a wing liner, maybe a little shading on the outer corner. Now, one of my gripes with Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow palettes in the past is that they included a lot of matte from medium to medium deep in intensity, and when you start to layer them, they sometimes catch onto the lid strangely and don't leave behind the smoothest blend. But when you can rely on a metallic shade to adjust the intensity, I feel you'll be more successful in having a smoother looking blend than layering matte on matte on matte. And I'm happy that there are more metallics in here than mattes. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, it's equal. I can't even count. My apologies. I think that's the most ideal setup, to have equal matte, equal metallics. You can mix and match as you like. Now with the swatches out the way, why don't you come in a little closer? That's enough. I got the Haus labs on. What do we got on the cheeks? I have Paradise Glow from the Pat McGrath duo. I could have used the classic Paradise Venus, but you know, I already had the duo, so why not? I feel Paradise Glow is a great pairing with Nouveau. That's how you say it, Alicia, for crying out loud. I'm sure you're wondering, well, how in the heck can I incorporate Wisteria? I think Wisteria is one of those shades you can just use on the entirety of your lid. Crease, lid, lower lash line to have that blown out pastel look. You could wear it exclusively on your lower lash line or even place it in the inner part of your lid as an accent shade. So let me do that one look because I really liked how it turned out over the weekend. Wisteria first with my Refer 01 brush, my flat shader, and just punching it here on the inner part of the eye. That's where I want to block out the region where I want Wisteria to rest. And then I'll go in with Metro, our matte clay. This is my Chikuhodo GSN9 blender brush, one of my favorites, and I think these shades go beautifully together. You can make a gradient with them if maybe you went with Wisteria first and then with Metro second, but I like setting up Wisteria on the inner part of the eye because I feel it dominates that portion of the look and appears more highlighted. Going in with Lily, and I like to do so with my finger because, oh my gosh, the shine on this is amazing. The multi-reflect pearl formula in the shade just has such beautiful shine and a little bit of twinkle as well when the shade settles onto the lid. The effect is gorgeous. And again, that rose gold base pairs beautifully with Metro. If you want, you can take your shader brush just to kind of blend down Lily a little bit, but if it travels up a touch, I think is quite lovely. Now we could do one of two things. We can take now Wisteria on the outer part and Metro on the inner, or Metro on the outer part of our lower lash line connecting to the top so we can, you know, finish off that bloop. I'm just whisking out here a little bit, so there we go. That in words. And now taking Wisteria and punching it on the inner part of my lower lash line. So we are creating this lavender, if you will, bracket of color on the inner part of the eye. And I'm whisking it here a little bit so that it can create a nice gradient through retro. Inner corner aisle is what I did, I think, the first time I created this look. You could go in with aisle, you could go in with wings since it has like that green silver tint to it. But just to stick to what we have going on the lid, I think aisle is a nice choice. It pairs well with wisteria, that champagne gold hue with the pastel lavender works out. Now this is why I love Muse. Muse is one of those shades, because it's metallic, is ultra smooth, which I find optimal to spread across the lid easily. You could also add it on the outer corner of your lid if you want a little more schmirk. Taking my Koido brush with Muse, adding a little bit, again, contrast here. So I'm whipping it up towards the edge of my lash line. And you don't have to take it far. You could just take it so it just goes past the edge of your lash line, a babyish wing, and take the side of the brush to now paint Muse along the entirety of your lash line so it can appear a little more cohesive. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. So that's eye look number 1. We'll add the lashes, but I wanted to move on to eye look number 2. Going straight into Liberty for sure, with my same Chikuhodo brush, building up the look from the crease by whipping in the shade. You can go in with Flor first if you want to set up that first shade, but I think it's fine to go in straight to Liberty to start building the color, to get a little more haze. Now, I will argue that Metro, I feel like, is easier to blend than Liberty. It's what I encounter mostly with these olive types of shades, so it's not a surprise to experience a smoother blend from Metro, but oops, wrong color. But with the goat hair brush, I think you can manipulate the shadow well. It might take you a little longer, but you'll get there. You know, it didn't take me hours. I also like the undertone of Liberty. It has a little bit of that brown, a little bit of that grunge. Now we could go in with Wings, Belle, Peacock, even Hope. So you have a lot of greens in here that you could pair with Liberty. I think I want to go with Hope first. Hope is just a lovely color, very shiny, and of course, when applying it with your finger, you get great stick. And what I like to do is use Peacock in the same manner that I used Muse to create a little more contrast here on the outer corner. But instead of using Peacock as a wing liner moment, picking that up with my shader brush, a very fluffy one, and tapping Peacock on the outer part of my lid. So now you have a little more depth, but I think a more prominent gradient as well, where you have like that teal green duochrome moving in to the olive metallic, you know, is a really nice transition there. And then using Wings, the more silver green, to place that shade on the inner part of our eye. This is going to appear shiny, overlapping that with Hope. So it has a really nice smooth transition there. And if you want it, you can keep it exclusively green by adding Liberty on the lower lash line. And just for simplicity's sake, that's what I'll do here to complete just that connection. And also I'll take some Peacock with a smaller shader brush, bracketing the outer portions of the outer lash line points, yeah? So it could be a little more connected. And this is a great opportunity to go in with Belle, or you could go in with Wisteria on the inner corner if you wanted. Lily's a great addition as well. Let's go in with Belle. Just to see how that looks. It is bronzy, but it's very shiny. So it will still have that pop on the inner part of the lid. You could go in with Paloma as inner corner highlight, just to kind of whisk that in so there's an apparent brightness there. And also Paloma on the brow arches for both looks, which is a great step to take if you're looking just to blend down any shading that took place that went a little too far up. All right, it's time to apply some lashes and I'll be right back. So here are some wide shots from round number 1, and I think you can conclude that including wisteria in an eye look is quite simple, right? And the color richness I'm very impressed with, in that you can punch in the color. It doesn't look too whitish in nature on my skin tone. Let me know if you're deeper than me or lighter than me, how Wisteria looks on you in terms of it maintaining its pastel profile colorness. Lily is fantastic, but again, I love Muse, just its versatility, because again, you don't need a dark matte to create shading. You can use a metallic even if it travels in towards your crease, which I will demo in the next round, where the smoothness from a metallic I think leaves behind just a more even blend, especially, yes, when layering it over another metallic, but when mixing it with a matte, I don't know, I just think it's easier, especially if one is a beginner. If this happens to be your first eyeshadow palette, then yeah, we're gonna get into it. So let me take this off, and yeah, I'll be back here in a minute. What shall we move into next? If you want to take a look at Fleur, let's whip that quickly through the crease again. Very powdery matte, but that's expected from ABH. Let me go to the side first. So this has a little bit of shading on my skin tone. It's not significant. I will probably use this for a light eye day just to have a little shading through the crease, and then pat down any of these. Even wings I would pair with Fleur, or you could do Isle, Belle, Lily. Of course, Lily is the MVP of the palette. No, wait, Muse is, excuse me, I'm sorry. But let's top down Wisteria. I'm using it mostly because I feel this will be the shade that's going to be neglected the most. People are like, I don't know how to use that. Well, you can see it has really nice coloring, and you can tap this along the lid, and I'm placing it under Fleur, you know, as just a bit of contrast. You could have gone in with Metro also instead if you wanted something on the inner corner. And let's do Isle as like that wash of inner corner sparkle, right? I'm placing it on the inner part of the eye, but I'm tapping it over Wisteria just to have a little more of that like gleaming, glistening effect. And how about Hope now on the lower lash line? This will be our prominent lower lash line shade. Why not? I know I have like leftover mascara on my lower lash line. Forgive me. And I'm tapping more Wisteria here just so it could have like that swoop that's happening with Hope, because Hope is pulling out slightly from the lower lash line, and I'm just trying to match up that vibe here on the top. Yeah? Oh, that's nice. Something's happening. If you want, you could pull out Hope a little bit too, so it could trail right under. You could keep this as is. If you want, you can add another something metallic over Wisteria, but I think we placed this here so it could be the prominent shade of the eyes. I also wanted to go in with wings. Let me grab our smaller brush here, because this is much lighter, and I think when placed over Hope, as you know, it has more of a highlight effect, right? Especially when Isle, the warm shade, is up here. Now you have wings. I think that's a nice pairing. Definitely going in with Belle now all over the lid, because I would like to show what happens when we use Muse as our shading or contrast shade, if you will. And I'm tapping it down first, and I just love the color. This reminds me of Bronze Eclipse from Pat McGrath's Midnight Sun, and has kind of the same vibe in terms of like that antique bronzy hue. So this is how it looks on the lid on its own. It doesn't have the same effect as, let's say, Lazarus from Mothership 3 Subversive. Lazarus is more of like a chocolate brown bronze. So this definitely has more of like a spotlight effect on the eyes. If I added mascara, that'd be quite nice. You could probably layer Lily over the center, but this is what I want to do. I'm going to grab a little bit of Muse, tap it here on the outer part of my lid, start to whisk it up, and take the swirl and twirl through the crease. Now it's mixing with Belle a little bit, yeah? And this is how we'll create a little more smoky smoke, right? I'm also bracketing the outer part of the lower lash line here, pulling it through the crease to get a little bit of like that. And if you wanted, you could take some Paloma just through the edges to further blur so they look a little smoother on the finish. And for sure, you can place Muse instead of Belle on the lid, through the crease, to create some major smokity smoke. That's going to be your ticket to create the smokiest eye you can if you were to just use one shadow from this palette. Going in with Lily now on the inner part of the eye, the rose gold. Look at that shine, even from here is crazy. Placing it here on the inner part of the lower lash line too. I think that's just a nice move in terms of getting like the ultra sparkly arcly back into the bronze, and then we move into the metallic chocolate bronze. All right, lashes, and I'll be right back. Loving Wisteria, mostly on the lid, just to have that prominent pastel moment, but great to know Muse can be used, again, rhymes, as your smoke out shade if you want to just keep it on the outer brackets or bring it all the way through the lid and up through the crease. I just think once you find yourself outside the box and experimenting more, mixing and matching more, because all these shades can be mixed together and you'll have still a soft, as the palette in the Anastasia line, soft glam look for sure, with a little more character, especially with the inclusion of Wisteria. And again, Lily is just, this shade is incredible. I know we have it somewhere in our collection, but the multi-pearl reflect in here is outstanding, and the versatility of the shade, I think, due to its rose gold base, you could pair with any shade in here. Even Hope, the olive, it would just look more minty. You know what I mean? It's a great pair. All right, one more round. Let's see what we're gonna do. I'll see you back here in a minute. Now, let's say you wanted to mix Metro and Peacock together. You'll be successful in doing so because Peacock's base shade, it has a warm flip to it. So although the crease shade will be fairly light, I think you can get away with applying Peacock on the lid, and perhaps it travels up a little bit also. As you see here, I'm placing it with my shader brush first, getting it on the majority of the lid. You could also pair Peacock with Liberty, the Hunter Green Matte in here, and I'm just swirling and twirling through the crease. And as you see, because the base of Peacock is very similar to the clay tone in Metro, it's fine. It's totally fine. And if you want more, you can then use your finger to place a little more color on the lid. And I'm going back now with my Chikuhodo brush just to blur the edges here. But you see, that's a pretty smooth transition color wise. It doesn't stop strangely at like the rose color shade. Again, Peacock's base melts well with Metro's clay tone. We could go in with Wings as our inner corner highlight. That green silvery shade I think pairs well with Peacock. Even though Peacock has like that rose base, the teal in there I think pairs well with Wings. And of course we could go in with Metro on the lower lash line here just to complete the look, and then taking a little bit of Peacock and not necessarily covering Metro, just overlapping it so it can mimic what's happening here on the lid. You wanted take a little bit of Lily, just a little bit, and tap it through the center of Peacock. This is an amazing scatter shade. It works well on its own, solo, okay, but you could also add it as like a scatter reflect moment, you know? And what shall we do on this side? Purposefully now placing Wisteria on the lower lash line as like our pastel lower lash line moment, having a lot of shading here, so it's traveling down low on purpose because I want you to see it. Now taking Hope on the center, using my finger just to help trail the edges here. Using Lily on the outer part of the lid, as well as the inner, fluffing it through with no additional matte. Taking more Hope and dabbing that on the center so it has like that spotlight moment. This is definitely a halo approach to the eye technique wise. Taking a little bit of Flor just on the edges here, so more so to finish the look, because I do want Lily to appear as like the prominent halo shape, but I am using Fleur to smooth out that blend a little bit. And of course, in with Wisteria on the lower lash line. But for the inner corner, I could have used Wisteria in the inner corner at any time, at any point with these eye looks, by the way. Using Isle again for the inner corner highlight. One of the easier pairings to identify is just, you know, applying Isle and Fleur, Belle and Liberty. A lot of these are set up for you. Wisteria and Peacock for sure, although I like Wisteria and Metro together, Wisteria and Lily. Okay, and even though we have the green through the center, it's light, more of like a pastel fairy type of a feel of an eye look. If you wanted, you could take some Muse and tap it here on the outer portion of the lid. And I did this a lot over the weekend because if you feel the light shades don't have enough oomph for you, you can add Muse, whether again in this manner or more robust by placing it on the outer corner of your eye so it could look shadier. And that's funny. But sometimes I just like to do like a quarter of like a serving of a little bit of wing smoky eye. All right, this is the last round. We did it. It's time for some lashes and I'll be right back. And here's the final round. Really loved how these eye looks turned out. I think they're fairly easy to achieve. And again, what impressed me about Nouveau was just how easy it was to pair the colors together, even with Wisteria. I knew that threw a lot of people off, but overall, even Peacock, Hope, like the more Muse, the more full-bodied shades are still soft in nature. I think it's due to the actual metallic formula. Peacock, although a duochrome, is very soft, very easy to blend. You don't actually need to use a matte to blend the edges. Yeah, so I think the formula makes it accessible and very much approachable to feel confident in mixing and matching. You're not going to run into muddiness. I don't think so. Even if you try to combine Liberty and Metro, these might be a little muddy-ish, I guess, but if you're careful with it, I think you'll be fine. But I think this challenges a more minimalist approach in that you don't have to combine 3 mattes for a successful look. You can stick with one or just 0 and use the metallics here to create the look like we did with Lily. Lily is like a multi-sparkle shade, but it gives a little bit of color because of the rose gold base. And I just whipped it through the crease, used Fleur just to soften the edges, and we have Wisteria mostly on the lower lash line. And again, it's a lot of fun. So I had a great time using the palette over the weekend. I was excited just to figure out other ways I can combine the colors in here, and each one I think has like a whimsical feel to it, definitely vintage. But let me know if you had this palette, what you think about it. I think it's a great one. Totally. It's perhaps, dare I say, I mean, I haven't used Anastasia Beverly Hills in a very long time, but from the ones that I have, I think this is one of my most favorites for sure. I didn't have the previous one that had the cheek colors in there. I just thought that was a lot of product, and the size of the palette was just huge. And yes, I know Mel Cosmetic palettes are huge too, but I didn't want another one of those long palettes, okay? The Nouveau one I think is well compact. I love the fabric finish on the design. It definitely, again, has that Art Deco feel, very whimsical. The pastel light shade, that approach to the color stored inspiration, I think well represented here. So yes, hopefully this video helped, not necessarily to make you buy Nouveau, but if you have similar shades and maybe this helped you kind of think outside the box in terms of how you compare your lighter, softer, more muted shades in the collection and create more looks with what you got. I'll see you down in the comments, fam, and until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, eyeshadow palette tutorial extravaganza, or monthly faves. Take care, and I will see you again soon.